Chapter 1: The Spark. The air smelled of charred metal and scorched earth, the acrid stench clinging to every breath. Eli Voss crouched low behind a crumbling wall, the remnants of a shattered apartment complex. His knuckles were white as he gripped the scavenged plasma rifle, its alien design a brutal contrast to the familiar city skyline, now dominated by Dominion drones. Overhead, a patrol ship buzzed like an angry wasp, its searchlights sweeping the debris. "Keep moving," Eli whispered into his comm. His voice was low but firm, the kind that cut through fear and doubt like a blade. Kai Turner's voice crackled back, laced with nervous energy. "You say that like they can't hear us breathing." "They can if we stay smart," Eli replied. "Just stick to the plan. In and out. No heroics." Kai snorted through the static. "Coming from you? That's rich." Eli ignored him, eyes fixed on the ship's searchlights. They flared across the wreckage, illuminating jagged edges of collapsed steel and concrete. At the far end of the rubble-strewn alley, the faint blue glow of Dominion tech pulsed, a crash scout drone, still sparking with residual energy. "That's it," Eli murmured. "Saris, you're up." A figure stepped forward from the shadows, tall and lanky, with skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Saris moved with the cautious grace of someone perpetually watching for threats, their black, pupil-less eyes darting nervously. "You ask much of me, human," Saris said, their voice tinged with an otherworldly resonance. "Because you're the only one who can do this," Eli said, not unkindly. Saris knelt by the drone, long fingers moving with a surgeon's precision. The Dominion's biomechanical technology hummed under their touch, cables writhing as if alive. Kai edged closer, his curiosity overcoming his fear. "What's it like, using their tech against them? I mean," Saris glanced at him. "Like dismantling a predator with its own teeth." The response silenced Kai, who took a step back. Eli's comm beeped sharply, breaking the moment. A new voice came through, ragged and urgent. "Eli, they're closing in. 3 clicks out, coming from the west." "Copy that," Eli said. "We're almost done here." He turned to Saris. "How much longer?" "Patience," Saris replied, though their hands moved faster. Sparks leapt as they extracted a core unit, a pulsating orb of blue energy. "This will disrupt their local comms, but only for a short time." "Good. That's all we need." The distant hum of approaching drones grew louder, accompanied by the faint whine of plasma engines. Eli felt a familiar knot tighten in his chest, a mix of anticipation and dread. "Move out," he ordered, waving Saris and Kai toward the alley's exit. The trio darted through the ruins, weaving between broken structures and scattered debris. The ground vibrated beneath their feet as Dominion patrols drew closer, the eerie glow of their equipment casting long shadows. Kai stumbled, cursing under his breath as he tripped over a twisted beam. Eli grabbed his arm, hauling him upright. "Focus, kid. We don't have time for mistakes." "Yeah, thanks for the pep talk," Kai muttered, but his voice was steadier now. Saris stopped abruptly, their head tilting as if listening to a sound the others couldn't hear. "What is it?" Eli asked. "Them." Saris pointed toward a nearby structure, its skeletal frame illuminated by flickering fires. A squad of Dominion soldiers emerged, their movements unnaturally synchronized. "Get to cover," Eli hissed, shoving Kai behind a pile of rubble. The soldiers moved like predators, their armor sleek and organic, pulsing faintly with the same biomechanical energy as their weapons. One raised a gauntlet, and a thin, piercing beam shot toward their hiding spot, scorching the ground inches away. Eli returned fire, the scavenged plasma rifle bucking in his hands. The blue streaks of energy slammed into one soldier's chest, sending them sprawling. "Not bad for primitive tech," Saris muttered, crouching beside him. "Less commentary, more solutions," Eli shot back. Kai fumbled with a small device, his hands trembling as he worked. "If I can boost the core's signal, it might fry their systems for a few seconds." "Do it," Eli said. The Dominion soldiers advanced, their movements relentless. Another beam narrowly missed Saris, who flinched but held their ground. Kai pressed a final button, and the core emitted a high-pitched whine. Suddenly, the Dominion soldiers froze mid-step, their weapons faltering. "Now!" Eli shouted. The three of them bolted, leaving the immobilized soldiers behind. They didn't stop running until they reached the relative safety of a collapsed overpass. Eli leaned against the concrete, catching his breath. "Good work, Kai. That bought us some time." Kai grinned despite the sweat dripping down his face. "Told you I could do it." Saris examined the core, now dark and inert. "You're fortunate their systems were vulnerable. Next time, you may not be so lucky." Eli met their gaze. "Next time, we'll be ready." Above them, the faint outline of a Dominion mothership loomed against the night sky, its lights like cold, unfeeling stars. Eli's jaw tightened. "We'll fight them until they break. Until it doesn't matter how advanced they are, how many they send. We'll show them what humanity is made of." Kai and Saris exchanged glances, each drawing strength from Eli's resolve. In the distance, the hum of Dominion patrols began anew. "Let's move," Eli said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We got work to do." Chapter 2, The Plan. The faint hum of the Dominion's patrols lingered in the air as Eli, Saris, and Kai slipped into the shadows of an abandoned military facility. The complex was a relic of Earth's past, its steel walls pockmarked with rust and plasma scars. A single beam of sunlight filtered through a jagged hole in the roof, casting a stark light on the scattered remnants of human resistance. Kai dropped his pack onto a table cluttered with wires and scraps of alien tech. "I swear, this place gets creepier every time we come back. Like ghosts are watching." Eli gave him a flat look. "Ghosts don't bother me. Dominion scouts do." "Focus up." Saris, ever the pragmatist, was already examining a salvaged Dominion console, their fingers gliding over its sleek, alien interface. "The patrols are intensifying. Your kind's defiance has them rattled." "Good," Eli said. "Let's keep it that way." He unrolled a battered map onto the table, the paper marked with red circles and hastily scrawled notes. "We don't have much time. They're planning something big, bigger than anything we've seen so far." Kai leaned in, squinting at the map. "Any idea what it is?" Sarah spoke without looking up. "The Dominion's tactics are predictable. When they encounter persistent resistance, they escalate. They'll likely target key survival resources: air, water, energy. Make the planet uninhabitable." Kai's eyes widened. "They destroy Earth just to beat us?" "It wouldn't be the first time," Sarah said quietly. The words hung in the air, a grim reminder of the stakes. Eli folded his arms, his expression hard. "That's why we're not going to let it happen." He pointed to a red circle near the edge of the map. "This is our target, a Dominion fuel refinery. Sarah says their fleet relies on a bioengineered energy source. If we can sabotage their supply line, we cripple their ability to escalate." Kai whistled low. "You want to hit that? It's crawling with soldiers and drones. We'd be walking into a death trap." "Not if we're smart about it," Eli said. Saris finally turned from the console, their black eyes gleaming. "I can disrupt their internal security systems, create a window of vulnerability. But it will be brief, and there's no margin for error." Kai ran a hand through his messy hair, his confidence wavering. "And what happens if this plan goes sideways? If they catch us?" Eli's voice was steady, unyielding. "Then we make sure they regret it." The tension in the room was palpable, but it wasn't fear. It was resolve. This wasn't the first impossible mission they'd faced, and it wouldn't be the last. "All right," Kai said, exhaling slowly. "Let's do it." The refinery loomed on the horizon, a monolithic structure of alien design. Its spires pulsed with a sickly green light, and massive pipes snaked into the ground like roots feeding on Earth itself. The air was heavy with the acrid smell of chemicals, and the ground beneath their feet felt unnaturally warm. Eli scanned the perimeter through binoculars. Dominion soldiers patrolled in tight formations, their movements unervingly synchronized. Above, drones hovered in lazy arcs, their searchlights slicing through the smoky air. "We'll enter through the maintenance sector," Saris whispered, gesturing to a side entrance partially concealed by debris. "Minimal surveillance. The main production area is deeper inside." Kai frowned. What's the backup plan if this entrance isn't as minimal as you think? Eli smirked faintly. We improvise. Just stay close. The team moved swiftly, sticking to the shadows. Saris led the way, their alien physiology allowing them to manipulate the Dominion's biometric scanners. A faint beep signaled their success, and the heavy door slid open with a hiss. The interior was worse than Eli had imagined. The refinery was alive, its walls pulsing with bioorganic material. Machinery groaned and hissed like breathing, and the dim green light cast eerie shadows. Kai shuddered. This place is disgusting. Saris glanced back. To you, perhaps? To the Dominion, it's perfection. They reached a control room overlooking the main production floor. Below, massive vats of glowing liquid churned, their contents feeding into pipelines that disappeared into the distance. Eli handed Saris a small device. Can you rig this to trigger a chain reaction? Saris inspected the device, their fingers moving with practiced precision. Yes, but the explosion will only disable this refinery. It won't stop the Dominion fleet entirely. It'll buy us time, Eli said. Kai perched on the edge of the console, his fingers hovering over the alien controls. If I can override their security grid, I might be able to shut down their entire network. At least for a while. Eli nodded. Do it. Saris, set the charges. I'll keep watch. The minutes stretched into an eternity as they worked. The tension was suffocating, every sound amplified in the cavernous space. Then the alarm sounded. Eli spun around, his rifle already raised. Dominion soldiers poured into the room, their weapons humming with lethal energy. We've been made, he shouted. Saris scrambled to complete the charges while Kai frantically typed into the console. Just a few more seconds. Eli fired, his shots precise and unrelenting. The soldiers advanced, their movements relentless despite their casualties. Kai! Eli yelled. Done! Kai slammed a final key, and the refinery shuddered violently. The vats below erupted, sending cascades of glowing liquid spilling across the floor. Go, go, go! Eli barked. They sprinted through the refinery as explosions rippled behind them, the walls groaning under the strain. The Dominion forces were in chaos, their synchronization disrupted by the network failure. Bursting into the open air, the team didn't stop running until they were far from the collapsing structure. Eli turned back, watching the refinery burn. That's one less weapon they can use against us. Kai doubled over, catching his breath. We're going to need a bigger plan if this is just the start. Saris, their expression unreadable, said quietly, this is only the beginning. But today, you proved something rare. Eli glanced at them. What's that? Saris met his gaze. That humanity's greatest weapon is its refusal to surrender. Above them, the night sky shimmered with the faint outline of Dominion ships. The war was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like they had a chance. Chapter 3: Echoes of Resistance. The smoke from the destroyed refinery was still visible on the horizon when the team reached the hidden bunker. The entrance, concealed beneath layers of dense vegetation and debris, opened with a faint hiss as Saris keyed in a biometric code. Inside, the air was cool but tense, the hum of machinery mingling with distant echoes of activity from the resistance fighters within. The space was a labyrinth of makeshift stations, glowing monitors, and hurried whispers, a stark contrast to the vast emptiness of the Dominion-controlled zones. Eli barely had time to drop his rifle on a nearby crate before a familiar voice cut through the din. You're late. Captain Rhea, a veteran of Earth's first resistance efforts, stepped forward. Her scarred face and graying hair spoke of years spent fighting an enemy that seemed invincible. Eli met her sharp gaze. The refinery's gone. Dominion supply lines are crippled. That bought us time. Rhea crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. Time's not enough. We need leverage. Do you have anything we can use? Saris stepped forward, their presence commanding despite their slight frame. The Dominion's fleet coordination relies on a singular control nexus, a central AI governing their ships and ground forces. Disabling it would leave their forces in disarray. Rhea raised an eyebrow. And how exactly do we disable something like that? Saris tilted their head, their tone clinical. We infiltrate the Nexus core. It's heavily guarded and buried deep within their flagship, Ascendant Wrath. But its destruction would render their fleet vulnerable. The room fell silent. Even the chatter of resistance fighters nearby seemed to pause as the weight of the proposal sank in. Kai broke the silence with a nervous laugh. Right? Just sneak aboard their flagship, stroll into the heart of their operations, and blow it up. Easy. Eli shot him a warning look before addressing Rhea. It's risky, but if Saris is right, it's our best shot at turning the tide. Rhea's gaze shifted between them, her skepticism clear. And if you're wrong? If this is another half measure that costs us lives for nothing? Saris interjected, their voice cold but steady. The alternative is extinction. Your kind has already lost most of this planet. How much more are you willing to sacrifice waiting for the perfect plan? Rhea's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Eli stepped closer, his tone firm. We've been fighting for survival since the first wave hit. This is our chance to fight for something more. To take back what they've stolen. For a moment, Rhea's hardened exterior seemed to crack. She let out a heavy sigh, nodding reluctantly. Fine, but if we're doing this, we're doing it right. No improvising. No last-minute heroics. Kai muttered under his breath. Guess that rules me out. Rhea ignored him, her focus on Saris. What do you need? The plan came together with a grim efficiency. Saris outlined the Nexus core's defenses. Layers of encrypted firewalls, automated sentries, and a cadre of Dominion elites. The only way in was through a maintenance shaft designed for drone repairs, a narrow, claustrophobic tunnel leading directly into the core. We'll have a 30-minute window before they realize we've breached their systems, Saris explained, projecting a schematic of the flagship onto a nearby screen. Any longer, and we'll be overwhelmed. Eli studied the diagram, his mind already racing through contingencies. And what happens if we don't make it out in time? Saris glanced at him, their expression neutral. Then we won't need to worry about making it out. Kai groaned. Great. Love the optimism. The room buzzed with subdued energy as the team prepared. Eli inspected his gear, double-checking every clip and charge. Kai tinkered with a small EMP device, muttering to himself about alien technology. Saris stood apart, their calm demeanor betraying none of the tension that gripped the others. As they boarded the stolen Dominion shuttle, a sleek, black craft barely large enough to hold them, Eli felt the weight of the mission settle on his shoulders. Failure wasn't an option. Not this time. The Ascendant Wrath was a looming behemoth, its massive silhouette blotting out the stars as the shuttle approached. The ship bristled with weaponry, its hull glowing faintly with the energy of its shields. Shuttle 6274, transmit clearance codes, a cold, mechanical voice demanded over the comms. Saris leaned forward, their fingers dancing over the shuttle's controls. Transmitting now. A tense silence followed. Then, the shields parted, creating a narrow corridor for their approach. We're in, Saris said quietly. Eli exhaled, gripping his weapon tightly. No turning back now. The shuttle docked in a dimly lit hangar, the air heavy with the hum of machinery. Saris led the way, their movements precise and unhesitating. The maintenance shaft was exactly where they'd predicted, its entrance hidden behind a cluster of towering supply crates. Kai hesitated, staring into the narrow tunnel. I never liked tight spaces. Eli nudged him forward. You'll like death even less. Move. The shaft was suffocating, the metallic walls pressing in on all sides. The faint whir of drones echoed ahead, and the air grew colder the deeper they descended. Finally, they emerged into a cavernous chamber bathed in an eerie blue light. The Nexus core stood at its center, a pulsating mass of alien technology, its surface covered in glowing runes and shifting panels. Saris stepped forward, pulling a small device from their belt. I'll upload a virus to disable the core. Cover me? Eli and Kai took defensive positions, their weapons trained on the entrances. For a moment, everything was still. Then the alarms blared. Dominion soldiers poured into the chamber, their energy weapons blazing. Eli fired back, his shots precise, but the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. "Hurry up, Saris!" Kai shouted, lobbing a makeshift grenade into the fray. Saris's hands moved with inhuman speed, the device syncing with the core. "Almost there!" Eli gritted his teeth, his focus unwavering despite the chaos. "We hold the line, no matter what." The room shook as the core began to destabilize, its glow intensifying. "Done!" Saris yelled, pulling back as the core emitted a deafening shriek. "Time to go!" Eli barked, leading the retreat as the chamber erupted in flames. The team barely made it to the shuttle before the Ascendant Wrath shuddered, explosions rippling through its massive frame. As they sped away, Eli watched the flagship burn, a grim smile on his face. "One step closer," he said quietly. "To what?" Kai asked. Eli's gaze hardened. "To freedom." Chapter 4: Flicker of Dawn. The stolen shuttle plunged through the upper atmosphere, its hull groaning under the strain. The Dominion flagship, Ascendant Wrath, crumbled in their wake, its massive frame breaking apart in fiery plumes that lit up the sky like a second sun. Inside the shuttle, silence reigned, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of the navigation console. Eli sat in the cockpit, his knuckles white against the controls. Sweat dripped down his brow, but his gaze remained fixed on the horizon. "Coordinates locked," Saris announced from behind him, their voice steady despite the chaos that had engulfed them mere moments ago. "We'll touch down at the Resistance outpost in 10 minutes. 10 minutes too long," Kai muttered, slumping into a chair. His face was pale, his fingers trembling as he examined the gash on his arm. "Let me see that," Eli ordered, his voice sharper than he intended. He grabbed the med kit from under the console and moved to Kai's side. "Just a scratch," Kai said, though he winced as Eli pressed a sterilizer against the wound. "Hold still," Eli grunted. "If you go septic, we'll have bigger problems than a Dominion fleet." Kai tried for a grin, but failed. Bigger than a fleet that wants us dead? Hard to imagine. The outpost came into view, a cluster of camouflage bunkers hidden within the jagged cliffs of the Grial Canyon. It was one of the last bastions of Earth's resistance, a battered but defiant stronghold in a world overrun by the Dominion. As the shuttle touched down, Rhea was waiting, her expression a mix of relief and disbelief. "You actually pulled it off," she said as the ramp lowered. Eli stepped down, his boots hitting the cracked earth with a resolute thud. "Barely. The flagship's gone, but it's only a matter of time before the Dominion retaliates." Rhea nodded grimly. "And the Nexus core?" Saris stepped forward, their face illuminated by the pale glow of their holopad. "The virus was successful. The fleet's coordination has been severely disrupted. For now, their ships are scattered, their communications compromised." "For now," Rhea repeated, her tone heavy with caution. Inside the command bunker, the atmosphere was electric. Resistance leaders gathered around a central hollow table, the destruction of the Ascendant Wrath displayed in triumphant detail. Yet Eli felt none of their jubilation. "What's the next move?" he asked, cutting through the celebratory murmurs. Rhea turned to him, her sharp eyes narrowing. "We consolidate. Rally every cell that's left and prepare for the counterstrike. The Dominion won't let this go unanswered. And when they come, we hit them harder," she said without hesitation. Kai leaned against the wall, his face drawn. "I hate to be the pessimist. Well, more of a realist, but their counterstrike's going to be biblical. They still have more ships, more troops, and enough firepower to level what's left of this planet." Rhea's gaze didn't waver. "And we have something they don't." Eli raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "Hope," she said simply. The hours dragged on as the team debriefed, strategized, and prepared. Exhaustion gnawed at Eli, but he pushed it aside. There was no room for weakness, not now. He found Saris in a quiet corner of the bunker, their holopad glowing faintly as they reviewed Dominion data. "You don't sleep, do you?" Eli asked, leaning against the wall. Saris didn't look up. "Sleep is a luxury, one we cannot afford." Eli crossed his arms, studying them. "You've been quiet since we got back." "I'm processing," Saris admitted. "Victory is unfamiliar." Eli chuckled dryly. "Get used to it. We'll need a lot more of them before this is over. Saris finally looked at him, their expression unreadable. You assume this fight can be won. It has to be, Eli said firmly. We didn't come this far to lose. Saris tilted their head, as if considering his words. Optimism is peculiar, but perhaps necessary. Eli smirked. You're learning. The warning sirens shattered the brief reprieve. Incoming, a voice yelled from the corridor. Dominion strike craft, multiple signatures. Eli sprinted to the command center, his heart pounding. The hollow table flared to life, displaying a swarm of enemy ships descending on the canyon. How the hell did they find us so fast? Kai shouted, already grabbing his rifle. Rhea's jaw tightened. Doesn't matter. We hold the line. Everyone to their stations. Eli turned to Saris. Can you disrupt their systems again? Slow them down. Saris's fingers flew over their hollow pad. I'll try, but their protocols will have adapted. We may not have the same advantage. Try anyway, Eli ordered. The outpost erupted into chaos. Fighters scrambled to defensive positions. Automated turrets whirred to life, and the air filled with the low rumble of approaching engines. Eli joined the front line, his pulse steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. The Dominion craft appeared over the ridge, sleek and menacing, their energy cannons glowing ominously. For Earth, someone shouted, and the Resistance fighters opened fire. The battle was a blur of sound and fury. Explosions lit up the canyon, the ground shaking with every impact. Eli's rifle grew hot in his hands as he fired relentlessly, each shot a defiance against the overwhelming odds. Kai fought beside him, his usual humor replaced by grim determination. Tell me we have a plan, he shouted over the din. The plan is to survive, Eli replied, taking down another drone. In the chaos, Saris worked frantically at their station, bypassing Dominion firewalls and launching countermeasures. Shields at 20%, a voice called out. Eli gritted his teeth, his focus narrowing as the enemy pushed closer. We hold, no matter what. Suddenly, the Dominion forces faltered. Their craft hesitated, their movements erratic. Saris, what did you do? Eli asked, hope flickering in his voice. Saris glanced up, their expression as close to a smile as Eli had ever seen. Introduced entropy. The Resistance fighters rallied, their renewed energy driving the Dominion back. As the last enemy ship retreated, the canyon fell silent. The cost was heavy, the ground littered with the fallen, but they had won. For the first time in years, Eli allowed himself to hope. One battle at a time, he murmured, staring at the horizon. And for the first time, the dawn didn't feel so far away.